Okay, just a moment. Okay, thanks. Okay, thanks, guys. I have to make sure I ask you guys for privacy point of view. Okay, great. Recording right now. So as I said, so let's just quickly go through the topic that we are meant to discuss about today. So we're going to be taking a look at risk associated with cloud generally, then cloud security responsibility matrix. Most of us, we all know already. Most of us, either intermediate or, it starts, understanding on cloud or cloud security generally. Then, of course, we look at enterprise cloud security frameworks. Now, I'm not going to dwell in these enterprise cloud security frameworks. As part of part two, we're going to take a little bit of deep dive, right, into this in part two. Then some few lesson learned in cloud security, right? This possibly might be a topic also for part two, but we're just going to touch it briefly. And then, so for Cyber Masterclass, it's going to be a cut through Azure Cloud, AWS Cloud, and GCP Cloud at one point, right? So, but hey, of course, you all know that Microsoft, in one way or the other, every organization has a bit of Microsoft in place, right? So we're going to be taking, step from Microsoft Cloud, and of course, we're going to stay on Microsoft Cloud for a while, right? And then later on, we take a look at some of the few things that we have on AWS, and my approach for other clouds, some might be as security as code. And when I say security as code, means that approach from Terraform perspective, approach from cloud formation from AWS perspective, and then a bit of some Kubernetes and containerization we're going to discuss when we come to GCP point of view. Okay, so we're going to look at securing Microsoft Cloud security assessment using a ZSK tool, which of course is called a ZTS right now, but today, we're going to take a look at is an SK piece, and the part two, we'll take a look at is a TS piece as well. And the key thing is this: before you advise your client to go ahead and move their resources or workload to cloud, there are specific guardrails. You should be able to validate what are the threats, what are the vulnerabilities, what are the configuration drifts that you need to cover for your client before they move to cloud. Okay. So right now, I mean, I do project across North America, right? I'm of course inclusive of UK as well. But prior before now, I mean, while I was in Nigeria, or, African region, South Africa, I I I have a couple of projects. The organization have co-located data center and all of that, right? And private cloud piece. And now, because co-location also is moving to cloud, it becomes a concern for organizations that are moving to cloud as well. And that's what we're going to be talking about for few risk. So about me, so I've been in the industry for about 15 years. Started in development, moving to infrastructure, and when I say infrastructure, Linux, Microsoft infrastructure, and then HP as well. Then from there, I'm moving into security. That should be about 11 years ago. And so when I say security, I mean I had a very core hands-on experience on different domains in security, application security, data security, implementing a lot of data encryption for a couple of banks across African and UK region, security engineering and architecture, and then I took all of those experience and I moved them to cloud like 7 years ago or 6 years ago, and that's why I'm pretty sound in cyber. Okay, and then cloud technology comes in place as well. Generally, currently now in North America, right? Aside the organization that I run, I'm also cloud security leader with Deloitte LLP, both in the US and in Canada as well, right? And I do come around to Africa to do projects as well. Just make sure that those projects are marking maybe $1 million, then I'll be around. Trust me. Okay, that's just a joke, by the way. So that's just a bit about me. If I am not doing tech, right, then I do a couple of other things, business. I have a lot of platforms and things like that I run stuff, across Africa and North America. Okay, that's just a little about me. Of course, some of you can join me. You can actually follow me, or we can add each other on LinkedIn and all that. Sometimes I share some insight on LinkedIn. Okay, so let's look at the risk associated with cloud generally, basically. Okay, so organization before now we use perimeter network, right? Once perimeter network in place and you have your firewall, you know that everybody's going to connect through the firewall and already have access rules configured on your firewall. And in those days, you all know that common, we all know Sophos, right? Sophos, either if it's not Sophos, you are using maybe Cisco or checkpoint devices and things like that. But hey, the game has changed. Now we have applications that are connecting through mobile devices, and that become a key concern. Why? Because those mobile devices connected directly to cloud, right? And they don't even come to your data center or come to your on-prem environment. And so the attack surface keep increasing. And then people thought about security as an afterthought, right? Now begin to consider security by design. That hey, before we try to move to cloud, while we are designing the application or the workload, there's a need for us to ensure we have security built in before we move to cloud or before we start the design of the application. Okay, so security becomes a very strong business enabler. As I said, I'm just going to run through this now. If you take a look at it, look at some of the key associated risk. Of course, OWASP top 10 is still a risk as from application point of view and APIs, right? But you have some general, concerns for organization moving to cloud. Concerns of data breach. We just talk about PII right now, privacy. A lot of privacy concerns, like so PHI or any of the privacy regulations and all the standard, and then the concept of defense in-depth attacks, right? So of course, the likes of malware injection, DDoS, all of these stretches you see here, they are still key concerns for CISOs or for individuals that are moving their workload to cloud. I'm not going to go detail in discussing this. As part of the part 2 piece, right? I will just possibly show you some tools to validate when you have some of these breaches, right, open on the internet, and then you want to find a way to sort of, be able to protect, right, yourself before you move your workload to cloud. Okay, so these are key concerns to some of the CISOs and all that generally, but we're not going to do all to spend more time on this one. Okay, so taking a look at it, as I said, before any organization moves to cloud, you should have a clear understanding that moving to cloud is a shared responsibility model. Of course, you all know that it's a software as a service, there's a platform as a service, there's infrastructure as a service, right? And then if you're going for infrastructure as a service, you know that you are responsible for the platform. You're responsible for the when I say platform, I'm talking about maybe the virtual machines or the virtual servers running the OS and things like that. And of course, the hardware at the background, the cloud service provider will be responsible for you. But application OS updates, patches, all of those are your responsibility. If you're doing platform as a service, they give you the platform. All right, they help you to do patch and update the platform. But for instance, if you're running Apache, right, on Windows, Apache or Linux, right, Apache itself, they've already given you that platform. Or you just need to configure all of the component that you need and all that on Apache, right? Sometimes platform as a service could be they have all the service on the platform, just bring your code and deploy. All right, so it could be a little blend of both depending on the cloud service provider provision. And of course, SaaS is of course pure responsibility of the cloud service provider, either Microsoft, AWS, or GCP or Google, as it may be. But the key thing is take note of this, right? Security, right, of the entire cloud is a responsibility of the cloud service provider. But the security in the cloud, when you are in the cloud with your workload, right? Just take note, that is your responsibility, right? So share responsibility model is something you want to tell your client or something that you want to embed as an understanding to yourself. As I said, I don't want to waste so much time on this one. If you have questions, you can just put them on the chat. I'm just trying to, be cognizant of time. As I said, Cyber Masterclass is an hour, but I want to stay within 45 minutes if it's possible so we can have time to chat or some question. Enterprise cloud security frameworks. Now, hey, these are different controls. I'm not going to spend time on this one. If any organization is going to cloud, in terms of the domains you need to pay attention to, identity and access context, right? What are the key things that you should be bothered about? Access lifecycle management, privilege, identity credentials, remote access, session management, all of those are key concerns. For data protection point of view, application security point of view, cloud vigilance, where we talk about SIEM, SOA, and all of those components, right? And then in terms of cloud resilience, right? Backup, disaster recovery, business continuity, RPO, all of those pieces, right? We'll discuss that. And then in the infrastructure piece as well, how do you connect to cloud, right? Do you, VPN, site-to-site VPN, point-to-site VPN, all of those discussion comes into place. But hey, in terms of the controls and the guide rails, These are the aspects and the areas, right, that you should have concern. And what I've done at the same time is we sort of create one for Azure. So you can see that all the services under each of the pillars are focusing on Azure. Take, for instance, identity. We're talking about Azure AD, Azure AD, AAD Connect for synchronization from on-prem, B2B, B2C, role-based access control, single sign-on, privilege access management, multi-factor authentication, service principal, service principal, then MSI, conditional access, domain service, and group policy object, right? All of these are Microsoft specific services for identity context. But take note, these controls and domains are not just meant to be considered. They are meant to be customized to what you need when you are moving to cloud. But what this framework does is to give you an holistic view of the things that you need to call out to your client or the things that you should be concerned about, right? Specifically. So your concern is, am I going to leverage on native cloud service to do this? Or am I going to use a third-party tool to do this? Those are the key concerns you want to ask yourself about, okay? And then, so this is for Azure and this is for AWS. So if you take a look at each of the services under here, these are specific AWS services, right? And this keep on, improving. So what I'm trying to say is the framework is agnostic rather, and then you can just blend it, right? Right now we're working on the one for Google right now. And so Google has also a framework for this as well. And someone's going to ask me this question that, hey, so I want to clarify as regard to what is different between Microsoft Cloud, AWS and Azure? It depends on every organization and what you're trying to do, right? So when you have a lot of Microsoft, infrastructure on-prem, and you're taking a look at, hey, you don't want to give your users or your team a different experience, Azure Cloud might be the first place for you to go to, right? Because you want to go from the known to the unknown, right? And of course, in terms of that, I'm not selling Microsoft, services, but in terms of, easy to use, all of those, concepts, Microsoft Cloud might be the first way to go. But in terms of when you are talking about enterprise modern application modernization, cloud transformation in bit of services, right? Running, app services in containerization perspective, microservices. Then you're talking about AWS because it's not so expensive. And so organizations that are doing a lot of, new innovations and all that, they want to tap into AWS cloud. And because it's so flexible and services are enabled, right? A lot of people consider AWS as a first point of call. But as I said, it depends on the plan of your organization. But when you are looking about big data analytics, when you are looking about data analytics, machine learning, right? Building insight into your data, right? I think Google does it better, right? And I've been a part of a lot of projects on Google platforms, and I'll tell you, when it comes to that mining of your data and building analytics and perfect integration into BI platforms and all of those, I think Google does it better, right? So hey, it depends on whatever you're taking a look at that will determine what kind of cloud platform you want to go into. But hey, let's come back to this. The discussion today is going to be first starting with Microsoft Cloud. So securing Microsoft Cloud, if your organization or you as an individual say, hey, the first point of call I'm going to go into is Microsoft Cloud. And for those people that are learning as well, we just start learning cloud. We're going to have a session that's going to be introduction to cloud, where I'll sort of break it down in terms of learning and resources where you can use to learn, where you can build yourself, right? And I'll share some links and all that, right, that you can use to have a quick learn and things like that. Cloud and cloud security, trust me, they're just scratching the surface. The opportunity is massive, right? And the opportunity cut across everywhere in the world. And it's not about where you're located. You can have remote jobs and work remotely from anywhere, okay? But that's a discussion for another day. So securing Microsoft Azure Cloud. Let's take a look at this. So what are the key things? So preventive, detective, and corrective measure, right, in place, okay? So the first thing here is, what are the preventive, controls that you need to have in place? And either going to be a third-party tool, or there's going to be a native cloud service. That's something that you have to take cognizance of based on that framework that I shared. Okay, let's take for instance on Azure, right? A detective and preventive tool could be Microsoft Defender for Cloud, right? Could be Microsoft Defender for endpoint, Microsoft Defender for identity, where it could be any of the native service that Microsoft offers, and you can have third-party solution as well. So if you have a Palo Alto, right, a firewall implemented, and that becomes your layer 3 to layer 7 protection, definitely that can come in between preventive and detective, right? And then you have a way to build in corrective using script. I, as a person, I use a lot of Python scripts. Okay, I use a lot of Python script. I use a lot of PowerShell. Okay, I use sometimes as well because I was a developer. So in security right now, I do a lot of security as code in my development, right? So it sort of helped me. So when I'm building encryption library, automation script, and things like that, that's what I do. So if I'm going to secure your platform, I might just give you some scripts, and those scripts you deploy them, and it's going to fit in security control within your platform. But as I said, that's another discussion for another day. Okay. So hey, what I'm trying to say here is you must be concerned about preventive, detective, and corrective piece, right? The preventive is those controls that they will not even allow the threat to get in. Okay, they block directly. Okay, detective is they might allow, right? But they will actually just going to detect and alert and send notification to you. But so if you use preventive and detective together, what happened? Okay, it will detect the issue and also block it, quarantine it, or move it to a sandbox. But an action will be taken, notification will be sent out, alert will be sent out as well. Okay. And then the last part is corrective. So now you've detected, now you've blocked. So what is the next step in terms of incident remediation or incident management plan, or ensuring that there's a quick recovery of the platform, all right, or quick response to the security incident? All of those are discussion that comes in corrective. Corrective could be automated. Detective could be automated, preventive could be automated. But I'm going to bring this topic back again in a subsequent cyber master class when we begin to look at specific technology and tools, right? When I say tools, I'm talking about there's going to be a session of cyber master class where we're going to talk about cloud security posture management, CSPM, CWPP, cloud workload protection, right? We're going to talk about all of those pieces later on, but this is just going to be at the high level. But the key thing is when you want to move to cloud, if it's securing Azure cloud, those things has to be in your mind. And if you're looking at from cloud, from native service, Microsoft have what we call Microsoft Cyber Reference Architecture, and most of us must have seen this, right? Of course, I'm not going to talk through this. I'm just going to give you an idea. So if you take a look at this in the middle here, Microsoft has a lot of services that could be a preventive, detective, and corrective as well. I'll give you a practical example. There's Azure Firewall Manager. This could be both preventive and detective, right? Depending on the rules that you've configured on this. Azure WAF for API and app protection. If you're using application gateway for Azure folks, they know what I'm talking about. You're hosting APIs within API management. You want to have app gateway. With that app gateway, you want to bundle with a WAF just to make sure. And by the way, WAF is web application firewall, just to make sure that layer 3 to layer 7 protection is provided to the app and the API services as well, right? So those can be preventive or detective as well. If you have an Azure automation account somewhere here, definitely that could be a corrective, right? You can just configure the Azure automation script on maybe your servers, could be Azure or non-Azure servers. You can configure that. So if you look at all of this, the components that Microsoft provides, they fit into preventive, detective, and also corrective piece as well, right? And here you have, Microsoft Sentinel. By the way, this is going to be another aspect that we're going to talk about in the subsequent masterclass session, right? So here you take a look at, Microsoft's, cloud SIEM solutions, Microsoft Sentinel, which of course does SIEM and, SOA. SOA means service orchestration and response, right? Platform. And the good thing about it is it's help you to sort of explore your logs, aggregate the logs, right? Analyze the logs and identify if there's any issue. And then you connect to a lot of threat indicators, and that could point out those threat indicators basically. But I'm not going to go through all of this. Maybe in part 2, we might talk some piece of this as well. Okay. So this is Microsoft's cyber reference architecture. Remember, what we are discussing is if you're securing Microsoft Cloud, right? And that's going to be the focus of the discussion today. Okay. Good. I'm just going to take a quick check in the room. Everyone, can you just confirm with me with a a thumbs up if the pace I'm going is okay. If I'm too fast, please let me know. Just a thumbs up that hey, the pace is okay. Just to be sure. Okay, Aziz, thanks. Any other person? Just be sure everyone is following. Oh, awesome. Okay, thanks. Okay, Sheung have a question. Go ahead, Sheung.
Sorry, so not a question. I was trying to raise my hand. Just
Okay, okay.
yeah, give you a thumbs up. So sorry. Sorry.
Thanks, Sheung. Okay, great. So thank you so much, everyone. So we're moving now to a bit of a bit of some pack. Now there are different tools. And one thing I'll be doing in this Cyber Master classes, I'll be introducing you guys to a lot of tools and scripts because that's what make my life easy. Okay. So I'm going to say this guy is pretty technical. So both a technical and a governance person. Okay. But because my experience, my years of experience, my hands is pretty dirty, right? So I'm very interested in DevSecOps. So yeah, I remember in our subsequent Cyber Master class, there'll be a session I'll take also on DevSecOps. Okay, and I'll show you guys some few tools on SaaS, DAST, SCA piece and all that, threat modeling tools and things like that. Okay, so take a look at the likes of SD elements, SonarQube, all of those pieces. But as I said, today is securing Microsoft Cloud. So we're going to discuss on Microsoft Cloud Security Assessment Tool, AZSK and AZTS. Now, these are suite of scripts, basically. Okay. When I say suite of scripts and command, and what we use them for is before you move cloud workloads, we use them to assess and validate what are the threats, what are the vulnerabilities that an attacker can explore if we move those resources to cloud. And sometimes we deploy the scripts as part of the CI/CD pipeline. Let me break that down. Some of us must have heard about DevOps, right? Or DevSecOps, which of course means that it makes agile, right? It's just to be able to deploy application very quick and fast. So the CI/CD pipeline, which is continuous integration and continuous delivery, what it means is it allows your developer, right, that are in the CI and the operational folks that are in the CD or release manager guys to be able to work in and together. For me, as a security person, I work across the CI/CD because I have gates in across the CI/CD. But as I said, DevSecOps is another discussion for another day. But what I'm trying to say is sometimes if you are deploying infrastructure as code via the CI/CD pipeline, I use this script as part of my gating parameter. So if you are deploying a Terraform infrastructure as code, sorry guys, I know I can't be able to break down some things because I feel everybody should be intermediate in some sort or some beginner advanced. Pardon my use of that word, right? But as I said, I'll have another session for introduction to cloud security, and we're going to break down some things in pieces. But for today, just bear with me. So if you're deploying infrastructure as code via CI/CD pipeline, there are supposed to be different gates. So static application security testing (SAST) is a gate. Dynamic application security testing is also a gate, right? So there are different gates. So one of the gates for infrastructure as code will be cloud security validation. I put the script in the CI/CD pipeline as part of the YAML file for those guys that have deployed CI/CD pipeline. And when I'm running the pipeline, part of the gating that will happen is going to be this script. Okay, just to mention that. So we can use it for DevSecOps gating and validation as well. And so this can be used for the platform itself, that's Azure subscription, can be used based on the resource workloads, can be used also based on the group of resources that you have or individual resources. And we're going to do a short, hands-on right now. So I'll give you a practical example how it works. And you guys might ask me, okay, Larry, so when we run that, are you going to share scripts with us or things like that? And when I'm sending mails to those people that registered, I'm going to make sure that I send you the step on how to set up this, within your PowerShell environment, and you can run it. Pretty simple. Nothing difficult or too difficult to do. So the secure DevOps kit for Azure, which is the AZSK, as I said, you can use it to validate the subscription. You can use it for CI/CD build and release extension. You can see that at 3. 4, periodically you can scan your production environment for any workload drifts. What do you mean by workload drifts? For instance, if a storage account that's meant to be a public endpoint is having SSL TLS or having a TLS 1.0, that is a red flag, because an attacker can do a man-in-the-middle attack, intercept the traffic, they can replay back the traffic, and they can attack that endpoint. So that means you have to make sure you change that TLS to TLS 1.2 at the bare minimum, possibly. Okay, so you can use it to periodically scan, right, what you have in production, and if there's going to be production drift, you can fix that as soon as possible. Now, secure. So you can see also single, security dashboard for DevOps stages as part of the DevOps pipeline. Once you have it in pipeline, you can actually be able to have it as part of your DevOps directly. And then for continuous improvement for security, either from the pipeline perspective or platform, you can also leverage these largely as well. So let's just take a look a few things, right? So I'm going to minimize my screen and tell me if you can see my PowerShell screen. Just a thumbs up if you can see my PowerShell screen. Okay. So I'm going to be very slow this time around. Yeah, Uyi, please go ahead, sir. Okay. Okay. So if you have a question, you can just put it on the chat or just raise your hand up. Okay. So I think everyone can see it. So first thing I want to do is, we said this is for Azure. Okay, this is for Azure platform. So let's first take a look at the Azure platform that we're trying to protect. And I think I have that open somewhere here. Okay, good. So this is Azure platform, by the way. Okay, this is Azure platform. Now, there are different resources on this Azure platform. And so on Azure platform, we have what we call resource groups. So resource groups is where you put all your resources in the same group, so you can be able to control those resources, right, and manage them effectively. And for those guys that use Azure platform, they've conversant with these already. But if you take a look at all of these resources, I'm interested in moving these resources to production or to cloud. I think we can mute this person. Okay, thank you so much for muting yourself. Thanks. So we have different resources here, basically. So I'm interested in this resource. So I want to move this resource to production environment. So if you take a look at this place, I have storage blobs, I have Sentinel, I have a lot of resources, I have Bastion. There are a lot of resources. Now I want to move this resource to production. But the question now is, my main team are asking me that, hey, are we safe to move this to production? Are we safe to implement and move this to cloud? And I'm not just going to give them a word of mouth and say, please move. No, I have to validate. And that's the main topic of this discussion. We have to validate this workload before we move them to production. So let's go back to the PowerShell environment and see what we have. So first and foremost, let's see. This subscription that we have. So the tool is an SK tool, as I mentioned earlier on, that we're using basically. So first and foremost, let's see, do we have a ZSK tool here? Okay. So you're just going to run a command, right? Find the module for ZSK if it's here. So let's take a look at if the module is there. By the way, as I said, the part 2 is going to go advanced. Instead of using a ZSK, we're going to use a ZTS. That's another tool, collection of scripts for that validation. So it's here, by the way. Now, if you don't have it here, guys, I will give you a set of commands for setting this up if you don't have it. Okay, very, very simple. So this is a ZSK, and I have a ZSK to be able to validate all of these resources you are seeing here. Okay. So yeah, so I have it here. If you don't have it, this is the command you're going to run. But I'll send it to you guys. But I'm not going to run the command right now because I already have it running on my platform, basically. So the next thing you want to see is, because these scripts are remote science scripts, first thing you want to know what type of execution policy that you have on your PowerShell. For those people that use PowerShell, you know what I'm talking about. You want to execute any scripts on PowerShell, you have to know the execution policy that applies. Okay. So first thing you want to validate what type. If it's remote signed, then you're good. So this is remote signed. Remote sign means that I can allow to run any script that I get from the internet or external commands or things like that, and I'm not going to have any concern, basically. Okay. If you don't have, if this is not showing remote sign, then you have to set that execution policy. This is the command to do that. I'm not going to do that right now because I already have this running. So let's log on to Azure and validate what we have. So I'm going to log on to Azure right now. Okay. So just a moment. So by the way, this is the screen I'm seeing. for me to log on to Azure. Okay. So it's telling me to put in my password. Okay. Of course, you don't advise you don't expect me to share my password with you guys, right? Okay. So I have that in here. And I think my MFA, many layers of security, right? Which is fine. Okay, so now I'm in this. Can you see that I'm in Azure via the PowerShell? I'm in Azure. How do I know I'm in Azure? So I say get AZ subscription. Let's see. Okay, let's see. It's supposed to show me my current subscription. That's correct. Okay. Now you remember that MSS. Remember this resource group is the one that we want to validate the workload. Let me go back to that so that we're on the same page. This is the one, right? MSS RG. That's the one we want to validate the security. So if I go back to this, I want to see whether it's in my view. Okay. So AZ, let's say resource group. Um, so it's there. So I can just pick. So get AZ resource group. So I'll see the list of resource group that I have. So if you come up here, you see that the list, all the lists are here. The one we are looking for is this one, MSSRG. That's the resource group we are looking for. Okay. Now remember that if I scan the entire platform, it's going to take a lot of time. So I have to limit this scan specifically to resource group. I'll stop here, guys. If I'm too fast, if my pace is okay, just give me a thumbs up. I don't want to be too. I want you guys to understand this. Just give me a thumbs up if you're good with the pace. Okay, thank you. Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, thanks, guys. Yeah, seems we're good. Just want to be sure that you guys are getting something from here. Okay, that's great. So now let's take a look at, validating those workload within that particular resource groups, right? So first thing I want to do is I'm going to store for people that use PowerShell, of course, programming normally you declare an environmental variable. So I'm declaring this variable and I'm storing this subscription ID. By the way, what is the subscription ID I'm talking about? I'm talking about this dude here. Remember I said get subscription earlier on. So I'm storing this dude and I'm storing this dude inside this variable. Okay, please take note. So is inside the variable. How do I know? If I come back and I want to call the variable, just to be sure, it's inside the variable. Can you see? It's giving me the subscription back. That means the variable is stored. The next thing I want to do is I want to store the specific um, resource group that I'm looking for, right? So if you come back here, so let's say that I want to store this in a variable. So this is the resource group. So let's go and copy that resource group out from Azure. Okay. So this is the resource group we're looking for. Remember, MSSPRG. So I want to store it in a variable. Simple stuff. Okay. So I'm putting it. Can you see? I'm storing it in this variable. I've stored it in the variable. If I call the variable out, just to be sure it's in the variable, can you see? It's there in the variable. Okay. Makes sense. Make the work easy. So the next thing I want to do is, yes, I can now validate the security within this resource group. Okay. And for me to do that, I'm just going to run this command. So get AZSK Azure Service Security Status for this specific resource group. And what is the resource group? This variable. I remember this variable is storing MSSPRG. Okay. So let's take a bit of maybe a little bit of time. Okay. And so what it's going to do is it's going to connect to Azure and it's going to begin to scan each of the resources that are within that resource group. Okay. So just going to give this a little moment. And one more thing I want to explain why this is running. What it means is you can also, because after this is done, it's going to give you a lot of findings, a lot of threats that you need to fix across your workload. The problem is if you have 1,000 sort of workload, if you're working in a very big banks or organization, so are you going to be going through each of the services and begin to configure them one after the other? That's going to take a lot of time. Okay, so what I do sometimes is I had another set of commands to generate all the solutions to fix all the problem in an automation script form. What that means is once these things finish running, it will tell me all the problems and give me all the solution. But all the solution will be in a script form. All I just need to do is to run the script. Once I run the script, every issue will be fixed within 5 minutes. That's the smartest way to do security as code, right? So, but I'll show you the command as well. I can run that, but it might take time. Maybe when I'm sending you guys, I'll send you guys an attach notepad, right? And add that script there as well, the command to run the fixed, we call it fixed scripts. You can use it to run the fixed script. So if you take a look at this one after the other, it's going through each of the resources and it's telling you can use it disabled. Alert rules must be configured for tracking activities. That is being flagged. Here, virtual network, there's no network security group for the gateway subnet. It's flagging that. So there are a couple of things that as it's running, it will be flagging. I'll be telling you this is a concern. This is a concern. And when you finish, running all of this, by the way, I have a report, a final report of this, and I'll show you right now so that you have an idea what this looks like after that has finished running. So the good thing is no matter the number of resources that you have on cloud, trust me, it's going to validate each of the resources. And after finishing the validation, it will give you a report, and the report looks like this. By the way, guys, let this be running. We can come back to this later on. Okay. So this is what the report looks like. Okay. Yeah. So while that is still running, I did this. Okay. And remember, as I said, I did this also with a fix control script. This is a script to fix, right, those issues. And I will open this in PowerShell for you guys to see. Okay. And here, this is the report that will show you after you finish your validation. So if you come back here, you see that this is the report. The report gives you, so this is the MSSG group that we're taking a look at, right? And then it shows you all the resources that are within this specifically. So you can take a look at that. So if I now say, hey, can you give me all the high issues that are high? Let's take a look at issues that are quite very high. So let's come here and see. Let's say we want to put attention on the ones that are critical, right? First. So let's say, just a moment, just a moment. So let's say this, everyone. I am actually looking at the other one, not this one. So, okay, good. So let's take a look at the controls. Let's say the one that are critical first, okay? So you can see the critical ones, basically your VDIO is critical, right? And what is it saying? It's saying that the management ports are open. So the management ports are open and it's giving you a recommendation of what needs to be done. Okay, so can you see it's giving you a recommendation that go to the portal and it's giving you step by step what to do. And you can deny action and save. But this is manual, right? As I said, this is manual. You have to go through each of these one after the other, and you have to fix whatever the issues are. Trust me, it takes a lot of time, right? Of course, it can be done. It's just going to take a bit of time, okay? And then, as I said earlier on, that instead of you not going through each of these one after the other, you can just run a control script. And this, for instance, is a fixed script. So if you take a look at this fixed script, let me try and open this in another session. Okay. See what the control script is about. Okay, it's saying repair function use files from services, repair these services, right, from the roots, and then those services are listed in this folder. Okay, so it's just going to this is going to pick this JSON file and it's going to run it to fix all of the issues that we have, right, that's been found. And trust me, I don't want to run it right now because I'm running this, okay? This is still running 25 out of 75, basically, okay? And so what that means is all the findings and the issue here, I can just run that script and it will fix everything from the PowerShell command point. And once that is run, all those controls will be fixed. Trust me, I've done this over and over again. And most times when I'm doing Azure workload, I take this approach. When I'm doing AWS as well, I have a bundle of a lot of people that does AWS very well. We have what we call well-architected AWS framework, and we have secure AWS environment. So I have Terraform and CloudFormation component that has some controls I've defined that help me to be able to secure AWS either from CI/CD pipeline or from platform perspective. I know we're supposed to spend 45 minutes, so we're beyond that now, guys. So I'm going to stop right here, and I'll open the door now, or open the floor for questions or clarifications or things you want to comment about. So, guys, the floor is open. So, if anybody have a question, you can just go ahead and ask. So, just let me know. For the people that are interested in if you're going to set this up in your environment for me to send Notepad to you, can you just type a yes on the chat just to be sure? Okay, thanks. Oh, yeah, Elo says it's a bit fast. Yeah, Elo, so I make the video available, okay, and you can be able to go through it. I was trying to box everything into that duration, okay? So yeah, I know it's a bit fast. As I said, this is a bit of intermediate, right? But hello, I'm gonna ensure that I run an introduction piece where I can be slow for everyone to follow. But hello, if it's okay with you, you can send me a message or send me an email and I can send this video to you. Would that be okay, hello? Let me know.
Definitely. I would love that.
Oh, okay, awesome. Aziz. Yeah, go ahead, Tolu.
Good day, Mr. Larry. How are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm doing great.
Okay, so I came in a tad bit late, but I got a feel of what you were trying to explain. But I'd just like you to just give a summary of everything you've just done right now, because I've never actually used Azure before.
Okay.
So I heard you talking about a resource. So exactly what's a resource in this case? Um, and what exactly are we validating? um Basically, because I got everything you did, but like I don't know what a resource is and what is it exactly you're validating. um yeah, basically that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a good question. So this is Azure platform, right? And I have a lot of resources. So now take for instance, so just to explain, oh, Elo is coming back, sorry. So just to explain, organization wants to do application on, and they want to move it to cloud, or they have a network and they want to move the network to cloud. Okay? Or organization have some infrastructure, they want to move it to cloud. So take for instance, a very big banking application is moving to Azure cloud. So that means when they're moving, a lot of things will move together with them, right? They're going to move servers, they're going to move some endpoint, they're going to move some application platforms, they're going to move the same network they have on-prem, they can extend it also to cloud. Now you are moving all of those as a workload. So that means on Azure, can you say FortiGate? FortiGate is a UTM, like firewall device, right? And this is what we used to have on-prem. But now instead of moving on-prem to cloud, you can move the on-prem to cloud, but you can also implement the same thing on cloud. Now, all of these resources, you're about to move them to production. But the concern your business or the company is having is, what are the threats? What are the security loopholes in this appliance before you move them to cloud? Because if you make the mistake, right, of moving them to cloud without you validating and remediating any issue before they move to cloud, attackers will just going to have fun with you. Because when you move them to cloud, they're going to connect to those services. Even though they are on Azure and AWS, people still attack. They're going to attack those services. And that's why AWS will tell you that your workload is your responsibility. We will secure the cloud platform, but your workload is your responsibility. Your data, your application is your responsibility. So Tolu, so what we are doing now is all of these resources are things we want to move to cloud. And this consists of firewall, this consists of virtual machine, this consists of storage, it consists of database, right? This consists of different components. So before we move them to production or to cloud, we're now using these scripts to validate what are the security vulnerabilities, what are the missing configuration controls that we're supposed to have. Is it that we're having missing TLS? Is it that we're having missing firewall configuration? All of those things that we are missing is what we are using the script to validate. And when we are done validating it, it gives us a report and give us recommendation of what we need to do. And now advise that instead of doing manual remediation, you can also have the script to generate automated fixing of the issue for you. And that's what this does. So this is doing it through the portal. Sometimes these old scripts, I can just put it in the CI/CD pipeline from DevSecOps. And when you are running your DevSecOps pipeline, your CI/CD pipeline, this script will run and validate. And once it validates, if those issues that it found are too much, that pipeline is going to break. It won't go into production or to staging. So that, and I'll go back to the DevOps guys and say, or infrastructure guys, say, we need to fix this issue before the pipeline can run again. So you can do this either CI/CD or you can do it directly from the portal, from the PowerShell point of view. Does that answer your question, Tolu?
Yes, it does, but it just brings me to ask more questions.
Go ahead, ask it. I think we still have like a few minutes.
So would you say a resource is like is that not an endpoint, but a
no? So a resource is a firewall.
Strictly. What about your servers?
That's what I'm saying. A resource is an example of a resource is a firewall. An example of a resource is a server. An example of a resource is an endpoint. An example of a resource is an application.
Okay, I get it. Okay.
Every resource you have on-prem is a resource.
You're just checking. You're basically checking if your server, in quotes, is secure, basically.
Yeah, hardened and secured.
Okay, I get it.
And then, but in this case, you're not. If you use a vulnerability management tools, vulnerability management tool might not be able to do it for firewall, right? They might not be able to go in depth into storage, but they can do for application and all of that. But what this tool does is it does it for all type of resources, Tolu, right? So it does it and check those all type of resources before you decide to move them to cloud. So collection of all these resources is what we refer to resource groups that I mentioned earlier on, Tolu.
Fair, understood.
From my point of view.
Yes, I should. Thanks.
No worries. Okay. Any other question, folks?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead, sir.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for these lessons, and I think it's very, very timely for someone like me. This script that you just run to check for vulnerabilities, and the other script that will fix the vulnerabilities.
Yes.
Where do you get them from? Do you need to be updating them, or is it one-time code?
Yes,
do they need
thank
to
you.
be updated from time to time?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a good question. So yes, you have to update them. And you have to update them based on the type of resources. You have to update them based on the type of configuration you want to check. There's a command script to also do the updates of those components. Now, two things. Is that you want to update them manually. Manually means that, so I write the script, right? Put the command in some command sets. And once I put them in the command sets, I'll put them in a Bitbucket or JIT, right? Repo. And in the JIT repo, what I does is I version them. So every time that I need to deploy, I check for any dependency or updates that is available, and I make sure that I update the script itself and also update the dependency. Okay? Now, at every point in time, if you don't update, if there's a new vulnerabilities in town, it means that this script will not catch it. So you have to update. You have to update the script. Now, what I do sometimes is I'll update them through the CI/CD pipeline for DevSecOps or DevOps people, right? And what I do is I have them version in the repo, And during the build time, there's a command I put in the script to connect to the internet secure source and help me update the dependency of the script, whereby I just need to update the bit of the script source code, right? But those dependencies are very important because in a dependency covers the number of threads that the script can catch in any of the resources. And don't forget, this is cloud agnostics. This is not only for Azure. This covers all resources across different platforms. But you want to ensure that your vulnerability database is broad. So as you said, to answer your question, yes, you have to update the dependencies and you also have to update the command and the scripts. And you can do it via the portal or you can do it via the CI/CD pipeline and repo based on versioning. Does that answer your question, sir?
Yes, it does. But again, these scripts, where do you fetch it from?
Okay.
Is it from Azure or from AWS or from the vendor, third party?
Yeah, so I just give you, let me just explain that a bit. So AZSK tool was a third party tool, okay? Microsoft they bought it initially and they start using it to validate their in-house services, right? So Microsoft Cloud Engineer. So by the way, guys, so I worked briefly a bit with Microsoft in the past, okay? So the cloud engineering team or engineering team generally, they use it for is they used to validate any services that Microsoft is pushing out. But Microsoft have used it as best practice for a while. So they feel like, hey, let's bring this out and for the open public as well. So they provide you with the dependency. It's you that have to write the commands and the scripts yourself, Mr. Uyi. So that means if any work you want to do, you write those sample script out. There are some that are available online that people have written, but you have to factor them to exactly what you want to do. So the dependency on the platform is provided, right, by Microsoft or by third party, but the scripts you want to run, those you have to write yourself. Does that answer your question, sir?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Yeah. And
Yes.
what I can do is for everyone that registered, I will send a notepad that gives you how to set up and how to run the baseline script as well. And if you need to do anything more complex than that, you can reach out to me. I'll be able to help out as well. But trust me, let me give you a practical example. I was here because I had a project, one of the banks in Africa, and they are moving a couple of things to cloud. And I needed someone to go on prem because they wanted me to be on prem because I wasn't around in Africa to do that. And all I did was like I have to get someone to go ahead and run the scripts, right? To run the script, set of scripts and things like that. And that's what he did. He went to the back data center, run the set of script for me, help them to validate, help them to resolve the issue and things like that. Trust me, how much did I pay the guy? You can imagine, right? Just for the work he did for me alone, I have no choice but to pay him $5,000, right? I mean, you can convert that what that would be in naira or any of the African currency, right? But I'm just saying, just this skill alone is what I need from him to help me to do, right? But of course, he spent up to like 3 weeks or 2 weeks on site because he has to remediate all the issues and things like that before they decide to do everything and move it to cloud. That just to let you know the importance of how small this the skill is itself. I'm not expecting you to all know it one day, but it's a beginning, is an open eye or eye opener or something like that for you guys. And in the part two of this session, there's some things that I will be slow on and break down as well, because we're going to be using AZTS, which is another set of scripts. This one is for validation, right? But that one is for both secure configuration and advanced validation. So I'll say this is preliminary kind of, and just to let you know, for everyone that will be joining my session, there will be the talk part of the session and there will be the hands-on part of the session, because I want a lot of people to know quick scripts, tools that you can get things done fast, right? Either from security point of view, from DevOps, from DevSecOps point of view. For me, I'm all around in security, right? Not just cloud, right? Just to let you guys know. So I have pretty strong hands-on background experience in security. So I'm just bringing all of those to cloud as well. So hey guys, you can send me a message, we can connect, we can discuss further. I can point you to some resource links and things like that, just to make sure that you can be able to get started as soon as possible. Okay, guys, I think this report, there's a part of it that's not done, but the report is here. Okay, so you can see this is what I'm interested in. Okay, and this is the report here, but it's not different from the other one that I run. Okay, so I don't need to, yeah, so it's the same report basically. Okay, so guys, if this has been very useful, please, if this makes sense, please just type yes, just to be sure that you gain something from the session. And I will invite you as well to part 2. And for those that will be interested in the deck, the presentation deck, please just let me know by sending interested in the deck on the chat, so I will know that that will be shared with you if you're interested in the deck. So some people are asking for my LinkedIn profile. Okay, so let me put my LinkedIn profile on the chat. So you can join me on LinkedIn as well. Just a moment. Okay, so this is my LinkedIn profile. So I put it on the charts. So you can join me. Oh yeah, Tomike. Okay, so your name is Tomike. Okay, I get that. So this is my LinkedIn profile, guys. Yeah, go ahead, Aziz.
Yeah, this is just a general question. So I registered, but I didn't get an invite. So I just had to manually go into this meeting today.
Oh, Aziz, that's when did you register? Was it yesterday?
Yeah.
Oh, apologies, Aziz. I'm very sure some people that registered yesterday, some complain as well they didn't get that invite. My sincere apology for that. But I know that people that registered probably before yesterday got it. But definitely, Aziz, I'll take note of your name just to
Absolutely.
make sure that I can share that with you.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Aziz. And so, guys, any other questions? Any other concerns? By the way, everyone on the that said that they are interested in the deck, definitely I will pick your name down and ensure that you receive the deck, and then the deck and the video as well, the video link, just to make sure that we can revise or listen to it over and again. Okay, guys, any other questions? If we are good, thanks so much for joining the Cyber Masterclass for October 2022 edition. We're going to be going to the part 2 in November, but probably before that time, there might be something for introduction to cloud security. So just keep your fingers crossed. But trust me, it's going to be as interesting as today as well. So guys, thank you so much for joining the sessions. And of course, staying with me up to this time. I'm sure that we've gained value, I've gained something from the session as well. And do have a fantastic weekend, guys. Bye for now.